Well, Josh, in a first for our channel, we're going to talk about an Italian film that isn't horrible.
Oh!
But is still just as confusing.
Yes.
It's Suspiria!
So, we're going to talk about Suspiria and also talk about Suspiria. But first, let's talk a little bit about what the original Suspiria is. It's filmed by Dario Argento, who is a very prolific filmmaker by a lot of measures.
Yes, I'd seen Suspiria years and years ago, because it's one of the most famous older horror movies, and that was all I'd seen from him for the longest time. And then it's really in the last 4 or 5 years where I finally, because that whole like Italian horror thing in general was like a blind spot for me.
Yeah.
So I really delved into his movies to the point where now he's one of my favorite filmmakers.
Yeah, you've really caught up. Like you,
yeah,
you dug into the 90s.
I'm all in on the Italian horror shit.
Yeah.
But when people talk about like, you know, like John Carpenter and kind of his run through the 80s, and how it's like, bam, you know, Escape from New York, They Live, like every movie was like...
Elvis.
Well, that's a little early, his biggest movie, Elvis.
Yeah.
But just kind of how it was like one awesome movie after another, and that was basically through the 80s, and then kind of nosedived a bit. But Dario Argento has a much longer track record of like, one awesome movie after another.
Really starting in like, what, like 71, I want to say?
71 with Bird with the Crystal Plumage, which is great. And then going up to, I would say like 90, I think 93 is Stendhal Syndrome.
Is that Stendhal? Okay.
Which I don't think is as well liked. I think it's kind of great, but
I still haven't seen that one.
But then after that, and not only like a, it's like a, oof. He did Dracula 3D. Which was so bad that it actually made me sad and I couldn't finish it. Seeing a director that great fall that far just really bummed me out.
That's understandable.
But yeah, no, I've grown to really, really love Dario Argento.
And I need to know more, but everything that I've seen from him I've very much enjoyed. And it's kind of been dipping into, you know, Deep Red I'd seen forever ago before really knowing who Argento was, so like not realizing that was sort of, you know, connected to and sort of a style in itself. Because you see Deep Red with no context, like that was the first Giallo I'd ever seen. It's like, what, huh?
Why is everything kind of weird?
And everybody's dubbed, but some of them are kind of dubbed right, and some are kind of dubbed not so right.
The bookstore on the corner has a window. Just your books are in it.
Really?
Not just Italian horror, but Italian films in general from a long period. Had sort of a weird production style, which is they were shot without sound, completely without sound, and then everything is dubbed.
Yeah.
And oftentimes they cast actors from all over the world. So you have American actors, you have Spanish actors, you have Italian actors, and they all speak their own language.
Yep.
On camera, and then everything's just dubbed to, you know, English or Italian or whatever.
Which is, in terms of a working actor, is kind of just baffling to me.
It's so bizarre to me.
Like, wow.
They did that for decades.
Yeah, that you can just speak your own language and just have confidence that what the person is saying back to you is their line.
This Austrian psychiatrist is giving the Baron the lowdown on why his monster's so bloodthirsty. It's because he's got no sex life. Libido frustration, consequent homicidal impulse.
Which I think is kind of why there is a disconnect when you watch a lot of these movies, where the performances are always kind of off.
Even the ones when everyone is speaking Italian, and they're overdubbing, you know, it's all the same language.
Even if they're speaking Italian, it's still dubbed.
Yeah,
it's always dubbed.
It's always dubbed.
And then you got the westerns, you know, the spaghetti westerns. Those
are
all dubbed. And, and I think that can be kind of a hurdle for people.
Sure.
Because it is sort of off-putting at first, where you're like, everything feels wrong and the performances are bizarre.
Yeah, and you just have to kind of sink into it.
Well, for me, eventually it becomes sort of one of the charms of them.
Yeah,
where it's like when they don't have it, it's actually weird. I watched a movie called Shocking Dark, aka Terminator 2, directed by notorious hack Bruno Mattei.
Oh no!
And that uses all the actual on-set audio, and I was like, this feels wrong because it's right.
All right, you bunch of pussies, I'm back and I'm kicking ass.
Something that, even if they weren't necessarily cognizant of it or planning on it, I think Giallo movies in particular take advantage of that because they're sort of, they're not, there's a real lack of realistic everything in a Giallo movie. It's based on, Giallo is the Italian word for yellow. It's related to pulp novels, like cheapo novels. It would be like all have yellow spines, so you could recognize them. And it's kind of pulp filmmaking, so it's all like murder and sort of just stylized, very stylized sort of filmmaking, and the detachment of the audio really. It works. Well, it doesn't help, but it works.
It creates a different sort of. It's like almost like a there's slightly dreamlike quality.
Yeah.
And there are kind of the staples, because some people call Suspiria a giallo, and it seems to be kind of nebulous on what is and isn't a giallo. The hallmarks are kind of the black glove killer. They're always kind of a murder mystery. The people that are trying to solve who the killer is are usually not cops. They're oftentimes people from another country.
Yeah, a lot of American interlopers in giallo movies. Just like, I just wanted to come to Italy to sell my book. Oh, fuck!
Yeah. So those are kind of the hallmarks, and Suspiria is actually Argento's kind of first movie that really gets away from that, because that's what he was known for and got popular for, is like Bird with the Crystal Plumage, and then Deep Red was what he did right before Suspiria.
Right.
And that's a great movie too, but on that film he worked with one of his actresses, is Daria Nicolodi, who co-wrote Suspiria with him, and is, I think, kind of, she never, like, people talk about Suspiria and they talk about Argento, but she was a huge part in him kind of, one, getting away from the giallo format, but also doing something that is so heavily female.
Yeah,
I mean, basically all the main characters in Suspiria are female.
While it kind of veers away from what giallo is in terms of the real signposted cliches of it, stylistically it fits in. Where like the look of it is very stylized, and it really goes past that almost.
Well, Argento amped it up with this movie.
Yeah.
The other ones, the stuff before that, it all had very kind of naturalistic lighting. But what made him interesting, and what I love about his movies, is his kind of shot composition, his choices in camera movement and editing specifically. Yeah, his pacing and the pacing of the editing. The misdirection of where you're looking at in the frame.
Yeah.
So Suspiria, we'll talk about the story. It'll take 5 seconds. An American dancer comes to Germany to join this dance academy. And she starts shacking up at the dance academy, and weird shit starts happening.
Yep.
And that's the movie.
Until she stops it happening.
Cue very abrupt ending.
Yeah.
Which is also an Argento staple.
Oh, God, it is.
Story's over, bye.
How do we burn everything down? Is it done? Okay, bye. That happens. Oh, that's Inferno, too. It's just like, oh, shit, everything's on fire.
Yeah, the end.
Yeah, okay.
And that's because this is Argento kind of going away from because the earlier giallos are kind of like, they're almost like procedurals, just not with cops. And this one gets away from that, and then he gets even further away from it with Inferno, which is why a lot of people really love that movie. For me, it's like it's one step too far, where it's like it has a lot of the cool sequences and visuals, but it doesn't have that kind of connective tissue to hold it all together that Suspiria has, which is weird things are happening at this dance academy. I'm going to investigate and try and figure out what they are. Oh, it's Coven of Witches.
Oh, whoops.
Whoops, the end.
Oh dear.
And you have the character of Susie Bannion to kind of guide you through these bizarre scenes and bizarre visuals.
I was comfortable with Inferno just because I see what you mean where it's one step too far, but I was still, the visuals and the whole idea was just able to kind of pull me along through it. Whereas like when you get to like Phenomena, I was like, that didn't have enough of anything going on. It's just like, it's what? The kid is, huh?
But it makes up for it with Donald Pleasance and a monkey.
It sure does.
And a weird little pig man at the end. So.
But yeah, I mean, Tenebrae has like that fantastic tracking shot, like up and around 3 stories, and just like that feels like something that was built off of Inferno.
Oh, sure.
Kind of.
Yeah.
So like that was something he wouldn't have done without that
telling the story visually,
yeah,
which he goes off the deep end with Suspiria and Inferno in that department. And it's like, I like a good solid story structure, but it's, it depends on the movie. Like when I watch a Spider-Man movie, I want a rigidly structured story with a character that I can care about and follow through the story. When it comes to something like Suspiria, I want to see weird shit.
Yes,
but
you've got to have
I'm a little more
something tied together.
Yeah, but I'm a little more open to it, sort of deviating and going in these weird places.
Sure.
'Cause it's I mean, I would say aside from Eraserhead, Suspiria is kind of the only other movie that really captures that feeling of a nightmare.
So Susie Bannon shows up to go to dance school it's still in Germany, right?
It's Germany, yeah.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter.
They mention, like, there's the weird opening narrator that comes on before the credits are even over.
Oh God, that's right.
Which really throws you off, because
Yeah.
it's like the awesome goblin music is playing, and then just all of a sudden this weird narrator kicks in.
Susie Bannion decided to perfect her ballet studies in the most famous school of dance in Europe.
Before the credits are done, and you're like, whoa, what's happening?
Yeah.
But he says, yeah, she's in Germany, and it doesn't really need to be Germany. It can be anywhere.
No,
but
it needs to be Europe, I think.
Sure.
But it just needs to be a foreign place to her.
Yes.
It's
Well,
Europe
that's-
for the rest of the characters. But
Yeah, because that's kind of the whole thing. Is one of Argento's influences was like fairy tales and visually like the old Disney movies. I always call Suspiria. It's like a Disney movie that's been possessed by a demon.
Absolutely.
Because she shows up in this strange land, she goes through the forest and ends up in this magical castle-looking place, and it's all Technicolor and all sorts of crazy lighting and
Yeah.
architecture. But the opening really sets it up, which is she's exiting the airport.
Verspätung des SAS-Fluges 641 auf Weiterzug nach Mailand.
It's all very like naturalistic sounds, and then the doors open and all that sound drops out and the goblin music kicks in, and then they close and it goes back to normal,
Yeah.
and then they open
Like,
again.
ooh, what's
and you're
out
like,
there?
Ooh, I'm leaving reality at this point.
Hey, meanwhile, another student from the school, who I love that her name is Pat Hingle.
I wanted to mention that. It's so fucking weird.
It feels like it should be like a character who played like a bunch of sheriffs in like a bunch of B movies we have upstairs.
Well, Pat Hingle
Pat
is
Hingle.
well, that is an actor. Pat Hingle was the Commissioner Gordon in the Tim Burton Batman movie.
God, that's right. That's right.
He gave us the signal.
Pat Hingle.
He looks very different in this film.
He does.
Yeah.
Pat Hingle gets to her friend's house where she can, apparently chill out, and is in the apartment looking around suspiciously, looking out the window. And all of a sudden, there's just a pair of eyes, which is so scary. Just seeing a pair of eyes, and nothing else, just a pair of eyes appear out of nowhere.
Well, then a weird hairy arm breaks through the glass out of the darkness, and you're like, "What the fuck is this?"
No idea. No, like,
and every shot has there's weird patterns on the walls,
Yeah.
and then of course the lighting,
the bold colors.
Yeah. Well, then this mysterious monster person not only stabs her in the chest, but starts stabbing her directly in her pulsating heart.
Yeah. That over-the-top jolt that's just like, it does serve notice in a way to say, we're not fucking around here.
Yes.
This is serious.
Well,
but it's almost too serious. Or
Yeah.
it goes past it, and it's just like, we're gonna have a fun time.
Well, that coupled
this
with the
terrible
goblin
thing.
music, which is so. I mean, parts of it are kind of melodic and almost like a music box. That's kind of the main theme. But then there's parts that are so like chaotic and jarring and off-putting.
They really, in that one, they really got a little more into the soundscaping, more than probably any other Goblin score that I can think of. There's the whispers on the soundtrack, and just hissing, witch,
witch.
Lots of tuned percussion, which is not not something they usually do. So it really works with that sort of overall atmosphere. But still a driving rock and roll kind of thing is in there as well. So that always keeps your pulse.
It's very
high when it
abrasive.
needs to.
I know someone that actually, because I recommend this movie to people, and I know someone that said they had to shut it off because the music was just too annoying. But,
wow, that of all things, the music would be it.
Yeah.
Huh.
And this is the opening 15 minutes, and it might be my favorite piece of filmmaking. Definitely my favorite piece of like horror filmmaking.
Yeah, just as a set piece by itself. It's
Of
just,
all time. Like the movie could have ended there and I'd be like, best movie ever made. I like the rest of the movie just fine, but nothing comes close to that opening for
It does. No, but that disorientation gets you kind of pulled through Susie actually getting to be in the school.
Yeah.
And her, orientation with Madame Blanc and.
Well, you want to tell her, like, you need to know about this shit that just happened. Like, get out of that school.
But no, she didn't see any of it. She's got it. She's ready to go.
Well, and then the I don't know if it's the next day, but shortly after that, then Susie's kind of walking through the school, and there's two cops.
Yeah.
The madams, the headmistresses or whatever at this dance academy are talking to the cops. And you're like, oh, is this going to be a giallo? Is this going to be a murder mystery? And then those cops are never seen again.
Nope.
I guess it's either sloppy writing or making you think it's going to be a different movie than it ends up being.
It does kind of feel that way in the long run, although that might be just kind of wishful thinking.
Maybe.
Susie. Sarah. I once read that names which begin with the letter S are the names of snakes.
Everybody that has a name that starts with an S is a snake.
Yeah, and then that character vanishes from the movie too.
That's okay. She wasn't doing much anyway. But so Susie's on campus. She befriends Sarah, who's next door. Together start noticing some weird things that are happening at the school.
Which makes you wonder, do any of these other students have any clue? Because it almost seems like the witches are kind of bad at like hiding what's going on.
They're terrible at it.
But nobody else seems to acknowledge it.
I kind of had that thought with both of the movies, which is, maybe it's down to the witches have them entranced or something, but it's just like, do you guys not, there's some crazy shit going, no? You just
Nobody
dance,
notices this?
Dance, okay. Yeah. Just want to learn how to dance, don't fucking bother me.
Nobody's weirded out by this little bowl cut boy? What's he doing here?
And it's around about that time that we get the one dance scene in Suspiria, 1977.
The one dance scene in a film that takes place at a dance academy.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of dancing in the movie.
Yeah, well, that's a big difference between this one and the remake, which we'll of course get into more with the remake, is that this one, it almost feels like the idea of setting it at a dance academy is just kind of like, this would be a different location for a movie.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It needed to be an academy of some sort, I guess, because we needed to have the main characters in the main location.
Yeah.
For the maggots and the stuff to work. A bunch of maggots start falling from the ceiling.
That's the first big odd thing where you're like, this is fucking weird. And it's great visually. It's great.
It is.
I mean, she's combing her hair, she's brushing her hair, and there's one drops into her hair, and then more and more. And then we cut out to the hallway and realize, oh, there's maggots falling from the ceiling everywhere.
Yeah, it's like that doesn't.
You're like, this is unusual, but then there's a logical explanation for it, where in the context of the movie, where they can be like, oh, that was some rotten meat that was up in the attic.
We just happened to have some meat up in the attic. Sure, so you did, witches.
That's the witches covering their tracks.
But what comes out of that is that everybody has to sleep in the dance studio.
Yes.
Including one of them has not actually supposedly been at the school.
The directress is here. That's her, the one who's snoring. She's the directress. How do you know? I'm sure it's her.
Well, there's a whole backstory about you can recognize her wheezing, and it's very fairy tale like.
Yeah,
and that's one of my favorite sequences in the movie, just visually. It's like I don't know why it reminds me of Revenge of the Nerds when they all have to sleep in the gym.
Joseph.
Except obviously a little more stylish.
Yeah.
But just everything's bathed in red, and you just get the silhouette of Mother Marco sleeping behind him, and we slowly push in on Sarah and Susie as they explain the kind of backstory or the hallmarks of Mother Marcos. It's really well done.
Yeah.
Maybe we can find out where they really go. It'd be enough to count the steps as they go.
It's Sarah that gets more suspicious.
And then, Sarah is the one that's way more forward in investigating this stuff, which leads to another one of my favorite sequences in the movie. And that's again, like, because I've heard some people complain about the barbed wire sequence. Or it's like, how did she not, does she have no peripheral vision? It's like, no, this is a nightmare.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
things happen to you in your nightmares.
Yeah.
Or maybe she was under the spell of the witches, so she didn't notice it was there.
You can chalk up a lot of this movie to these vagaries of just like,
Yeah.
why do you care? It doesn't matter.
And you don't want to excuse faults of a movie away, like storytelling faults, but in a movie like this, it really feels a lot more deliberate.
Exactly.
It doesn't feel like it's just sloppy.
No, at no point does it feel like it's convenience.
Yeah.
Sarah has to go to the barbed wire because that's what happens. and it's more like a fate kind of thing than a gloss over.
Yeah. Susie starts to kind of investigate what's happening, and then she lets Sarah in on it, and Sarah gets even more involved in kind of investigating what's happening. And it becomes kind of like a thing where the movie is sort of punishing these characters for questioning anything or wanting to gain more knowledge.
But that also, Susie starts to kind of come into her own curiosity, and she stops taking the drugged wine, and she's paying more attention to what's going on, and she's putting together the stuff, even the stuff that she heard from Pat Hingle, running away, it's like some flowers.
I only caught 2 words distinctly. Secret and irises. I don't know what they mean, but I thought they might be important.
And there's a weird moment, and she's like, she was saying something about irises, and I don't know what she meant. Meanwhile, in the wide shot of that scene, there's this giant mural behind her with irises painted on the wall. Gee, what could she be talking about?
I think it's those? Nah.
But what does it mean to be a witch?
But that leads into the kind of most like blunt blanket exposition sequence of the film, and it's interesting because she leaves the academy. She goes and talks to Udo Kier,
right?
Who there's so much exposition that she needs to be delivered that it requires a backup, and another guy comes in and gives her more exposition.
Because in 1905, after being hounded and cursed at for 10 years, at first a sort of school of dance and she was discovered by her favorite pupil. The Tam Academy was founded in 1895. The current spread of belief in magic and the occult is part of.
But that whole sequence is it's shot very traditional. It's much more grounded in reality.
Absolutely, it's daytime and bright.
I love that they isolate the kind of more dreamlike and really like vivid color stuff to the academy.
Yeah, and that
used
helps
appropriately for certain moments.
It helps with the isolation of the school as well.
Yeah, because then she's getting exposition dumped on, and it's we're like, oh, we're back to normal life. We're back to the real world
where information matters.
where things make sense.
Yeah.
If you ask a question, you'll get an answer.
Yeah.
But Udo Kier is wearing his Dougie Jones jacket in that scene.
He totally is.
And he does not sound like Udo Kier.
No. Well, let me tell you about all the things.
I'm convinced that the current spread of belief in magic and the occult is part of mental illness.
After that exposition scene, that's when the movie really, it kind of slow. It's like a roller coaster where it's slowly ramping up, and then it just goes crazy for the last 5 minutes.
Well, because we know we don't really have anything else to do. There's not anything that's going to build the story more.
Yeah.
We got to get to the end of this. We got to watch Susie make her final moves, essentially.
You wanted to kill me. You wanted to kill me.
And that's when we see that Mother Marcos is indeed the head witch.
Except she's invisible.
Except she's invisible, and lightning strikes, and then she can see her outline.
She's got a border.
It's a little weird. It's not like, oh, I have a clever plan to defeat the witch. It's just like, oh, that's the witch. I'm going to stab her.
Yeah. Sometimes the direct approach is the best approach. Like, oh shit, evil witch. Cool, gotta go.
Yeah. And then everything starts to blow up and she leaves. Credits.
We're done.
We're done. There's no more story. We're out of here.
No, it's like a fucking Wire or Minutemen song where it's just like, we ran out of words. We're just wrap it up.
But yeah, so it really, like, you know, we kind of make jokes about various story aspects, but it really is, I mean, it's such a visual experience.
Yeah.
It's a very sort of visceral movie, and that's really, it's telling a story through kind of emotions and set pieces more so than a direct narrative, and all the visuals are so great. I mean, this was super vibrant colors, just like clashing, just fighting each other.
Yeah, God.
So it's really, and that's the best thing I can say about it is, I've never seen another movie that's like Suspiria.
Yeah. Well, and that's honestly, that's how I could really tell, or how I noticed that the visuals were so impactful, was that every time I would see it in a better version.
Yeah.
You know, God, the first time I saw it was in VHS, you know, it's just like, this is cool. And then DVD, like, ooh, this is really neat. And then when we got to the 4K restoration, it's just, it hits you.
It's one of the most visually striking movies ever made.